All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. But first, let's mention Pig and a Pickle, the title sponsor of the Krug Show. 2 locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in both spots from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. It's all great, but man, get the brisket chili. Go say hi to Damon and Mary and tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. All right, we are almost 3 weeks in the books, sans the Monday night doubleheader in week 3. And I think the question needs to be broached or at least discussed. Who's the best team in the NFL? And coming out of week 3, or almost coming out of week 3 here, it's pretty clear that there's a logjam at the top of the NFL. The Bills, the Dolphins, the Chiefs in the AFC, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Niners in the NFC. Those undoubtedly are the 6 best teams in pro football right now. No doubt in my mind. And let's go through these teams right now and see if we can, kind of make sense of it. First of all, you got Buffalo. Buffalo's 2-1. They beat Washington this weekend, 37-3 on the road. The Bills' defense in this game forced 5 turnovers. In fact, the Bills the last 2 weeks have looked like a juggernaut. They've outscored their last 2 opponents 75-13. And they're doing it with their defense. They sacked Sam Howell 9 times in week 3. They had 4 interceptions. The Bills' offensive line is protecting Josh Allen. Washington, who's got a really good defensive line, with Chase Young and Montez Sweat, and they got Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen. Washington had 0 sacks of Josh Allen. Now, Buffalo's not perfect. They've got their own weaknesses. They still don't really have a reliable pass-catching option outside of Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. They did draft Kincaid, the rookie tight end out of Utah, and he's going to help. But they may be a receiver short. Outside of Diggs and Davis, there's not a lot there. And if there was an injury to Diggs or Davis, that would hurt Buffalo severely. But Buffalo is looking good, and they're getting it dialed up. And right now, they're on a real roll. So then you get Buffalo. They're 2-1. Let's move on to Miami. What a weekend for Miami. There probably is not going to be a team that's going to be more talked about this week than the Miami Dolphins, who absolutely destroyed Sean Payton's Denver Broncos 70-20, despite not having Jalen Waddle. How about that? The 70 points for the Dolphins. It's the most scored in an NFL game since 1966. And Miami has got a scary offense. Mike McDaniel is an incredible offensive play caller. And the Dolphins' offense has unmatched speed with Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Raheem Mostert, Devin Achane. Miami scored touchdowns on 8 of their 9 offensive possessions, or on 8 of 9 offensive possessions to start the game. Tua Tagovailoa is the NFL's leading passer right now. They took him out in the early 4th quarter. He completed each of his first 17 pass attempts. Miami's got so much speed. It's scary. Achane, who I'm a big A&M fan, Achane was a great player at A&M. He averaged 11.3 yards per carry on 18 carries. He's a home run hitter. We're talking about maybe the fastest collection of weapons in the history of the NFL. Achane, Tyreek, Waddle, Mostert, they all can take it to the house. Dolphins play Buffalo on the road next week, so that's going to be interesting. And Miami still has some questions at right tackle. Austin Jackson is looking like he's on his last leg, and he's not a great right tackle. So that's kind of their bugaboo, and we'll see if Austin Jackson can do a good enough job and protect Tua. Tua's kind of been thought of to be very, very injury prone. And now he's got kind of a questionable right tackle, but with the speed that they have, if he can just get the ball out of his hands, and then the head coach has got incredible ability as a play caller, that offense that the Dolphins have right now is scary. scary. And, you've got Jalen Phillips and Christian Wilkins on defense, Javon Holland on the back end. They've got some really, really, really good corners, really good corners. Miami's scary. Miami is scary, and they're 3-0. Now let's move on to Kansas City. Kansas City destroyed the Bears at Arrowhead. Now it is the Bears, but Kansas City, of course, is the defending Super Bowl champions. They have the incredible dynamic duo of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. That alone makes them a viable Super Bowl contender. But they also have other stars. Travis Kelce's a major star. Chris Jones is a major star. Isaiah Pacheco is emerging as a major star. If they find another offensive weapon to complement Kelce, who's, on the verge of being 34 years of age, if they can find a consistent wide receiver, whether it be Rice or, they got a few different wide receivers they can lean on, but Sky Moore, I'm not sure exactly which of their receivers is going to, Justin Ross. I don't know which one's going to emerge, or maybe they will trade for a wide receiver. If Kansas City can find one more offensive weapon to complement Kelce and Pacheco, they might be the best team in pro football. So, those are the three best teams in the AFC for sure. We'll put the Bengals aside until the Bengals figure out what they're doing. But right now, Kansas City, Miami, and Buffalo in the AFC all look scary. All right, let's flip it over to the NFC. We haven't seen the Philadelphia Eagles play in Week 3, but they are the defending NFC champions. They play on Monday Night Football against Tampa Bay. DeAndre Swift has given them a real nice running back. He ran for 175 yards last week against the Vikings. And then you got Jalen Hurts, who was a MVP runner-up last year. The Eagles, have Jalen Carter on their defensive front. They have lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on the back end, and that hurts them. But, man, the Eagles are a big-time player, big-time football team. Hurts, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. Now they add DeAndre Swift. They got a tremendous offensive line, maybe the best offensive line. And defensively, they lost Javon Hargrave, but Jalen Carter's balling out. So the one thing to look for with the Eagles is they do need an upgrade at the nickel corner spot. The veteran Avonte Maddox is now on the IR with a pectoral injury, and so the Eagles lost a key cog on the back end. But outside of that, man, Philadelphia is looking really, really solid. Let's move on to Dallas. They lose in Week 3, but they headed into Week 3 with a 2-0 record and the league's largest point differential at plus 60. Now, the Cowboys, have an excellent group of pass rushers, and they've got some corners that can pick off passes. And when they look good, they look really good. The problem with Dallas is the depth on the offensive line. They're an injury or two away from deploying some really subpar players. Undrafted free agent TJ Bass is going to wind up playing some snaps for Dallas. Dallas was down a couple linemen in Week 3. It kind of showed. They really didn't do nearly as good a job as they had in the first 2 weeks of the year. But they can dial up some pass rush. They have lost Trevon Diggs to a torn ACL, so he's done for the year. And in Week 3 against the Cardinals, Dallas looked sloppy. They committed a bunch of penalties, and they couldn't stop Arizona's run game, and they couldn't stop the explosives, and they just didn't look sharp. They didn't look like they really brought it. I kind of like the matchup of Cowboys-Niners in 2 weeks because the Niners run the ball, and Dallas struggles to run the ball. Dallas is also a one running back football team. They lean on Tony Pollard. They'll throw it a little bit out of the backfield to Rico Dowdell, the former South Carolina star, but it's not a deep offensive backfield, and any injury to Pollard would decimate the Cowboys' chances of winning a Super Bowl. But Dallas is also a team to watch in the Jonathan Taylor sweepstakes. If the Cowboys somehow can trade for Jonathan Taylor before the trade deadline at the beginning of November, that might get them over the top. When they're good, they look awesome. They look unbeatable. They look like the best team in pro football. Against the Cardinals today, they didn't look that good. They looked sloppy. They had a bunch of penalties, and they couldn't stop the run. And that's the Dallas team that I think the Niners can beat and will beat in a couple weeks. And then there's the 49ers. And the Niners have won 13 straight regular season games and are off to only their second 3-0 start in the last 25 seasons. We saw the Giants try to come up with a way to beat the Niners, and what was their plan? We're going to blitz the hell out of Brock Purdy. And they did. They blitzed Purdy on 33 of his 39 dropbacks, according to the NFL Next Gen stats, and he capitalized with 247 of his 310 yards passing coming on those blitz plays. So he had the answer. And, of course, the Giants struggled to move the ball in the Niner defense and finished with only 150 yards of offense. Niners almost tripled them up as far as total yards. So, the 49ers are a very interesting football team from the standpoint of they've got Kyle Shanahan calling plays, and he might be as good as anybody not named Andy Reid. And he's got a bevy of offensive stars: Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, CMC. Trent Williams is the best left tackle in football. Then you flip it over to the defense, and there's stars everywhere you look. Fred Warner's a star. Dre Greenlaw's a star. Mooney Ward, Javon Hargrave. There's a lot of really good players in the 49ers. John Lynch has built an exceptionally deep roster. The question for the 49ers is going to be probably a couple things. How good is the quality of their depth along the defensive end spots? But they last year, Ebukam, Omenihu, and Willis averaged 91 snaps in the three postseason games. They don't have those guys this year. And so far through 3 games, it hasn't burned them. But if they lose any bodies up front, God forbid they lost a Bosa or a Drake Jackson, they would be incredibly challenged for edge rush quality and depth on that defensive line. So to me, that's my main concern. Other people are more concerned about the offensive line. And a lot of times people will point to Colton McKivitz. Now, I'm not as concerned about McKivitz as I am about the Niners' interior offensive line. The Niners' interior O-line, and that's obviously Aaron Banks at left guard and Jake Brendel at center and Spencer Burford at right guard. Those 3 guys have given up 21 pressures and 17 quarterback hurries through 3 games, according to PFF. So, if you want to bother Brock Purdy, get pressure in his face. If you get pressure in his face, he can't step up. You get pressure in his face. I think all quarterbacks don't want pressure in their face. So I like Burford and I like Banks. I think Brendel's pretty effective. I thought Brendel did an amazing job against the Giants at sliding the protection the right direction. Communication was really on point when you consider how many times Martindale blitzed Brock Purdy in the Niner offense. All the different exotic blitzes the Giants threw their way, and the Niner offensive line handled it. Purdy was not running for his life all night long. But that's my concern. It's the depth at corner, the depth at defensive end, and just can the Niner interior trio hold serve? Can they keep pressure out of Brock's face? And if they can, I think the 49ers are probably the best team in pro football. So very interesting first 3 weeks of the season. If you had asked me a couple weeks ago, I didn't know exactly how the Super Bowl contenders were taking shape. Now we've seen Buffalo look dominant the last 2 weeks. We're watching Miami show the kind of explosiveness and speed that really has never been assembled before in the NFL. You got the Chiefs, who are probably a wide receiver trade away from maybe going back-to-back. They got Mahomes in his prime. Andy Reid still doing his thing. They put on a clinic at Arrowhead against the Bears. You got the Eagles, who have replaced Javon Hargrave with Jalen Carter, and they haven't missed a beat. The question, with Philly is on the back end. They don't miss Javon Hargrave. They miss Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and now they're missing Avonte Maddox. And then Dallas. Is Dallas the team that looked dominant the first 2 weeks against the Jets and the Giants? Or is Dallas a flawed team that struggles to stop the run, commits way too many penalties, and has no depth along the offensive line. So every one of these teams has challenges, and the Niners do as well. But right now, I'd say that the 49ers look as good or better than every team at the top in the top tier in the NFL going into week 4. All right, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to all you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.